Telling Our Stories to the World is a series from Queensland Writers Centre. We acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which this podcast was made. Welcome to Queens of the Land, the podcast about women carving out their best life on the land. I'm Jane Holtgren.
And I'm Helen Roche.
Helen, have you ever had an amazing idea for a business and thought, if I could be bothered, this could make big bucks?
Well, funny you should say that, because about 15 years ago, my husband and I got this brilliant idea to import wine from Chile.
I think I remember you telling me about this,
Yes.
and this is when you started your Breaking Bad wine business from your garage?
Yes. Southern Cross Wine Merchants, we were called. Now, the big bucks bit
how'd
didn't
that go?
actually pay off, but we had a really fun time.
Oh, that's so good. How many years did you do it for?
We did it for 8 years, and then we needed to get a real job because our children needed to go to school.
Oh, damn. They get in the way all the time, don't they? Well, today we're meeting Jilly Tyler, who had this big idea about making dinner easy, delicious, and saving on food waste. It's called Weeknight Cook.
How do we take the bits of meat, protein that aren't easily made into dishes by consumers, so the longer to cook cuts, and develop them into really yummy meal solutions. So it's sort of a win-win for the consumer, but also showcasing Australian produce and agriculture.
So is that a thing like the Light and Easies or the...
Yeah, imagine if Light and Easy and HelloFresh had a baby. That's what Weeknight Cook would be. So it doesn't come like ready meal done, and there's just a few minimal other steps in there and all really good quality produce. So that's their point of difference.
Is Jilly from the Darling Downs?
Yes, she is. She wears these beautiful, bright colours all the time. She's got bright, bold glasses. So she's just this kind of flash of colour in Dalby you see passing in the distance sometimes, or I see her. I actually thought when I did my interview with her, I thought that I had the audio sus, but I remember hearing the jingle bells of the bangles thinking, I should say, get the bangles off. But I couldn't because they seemed like they were a part of her.
I grew up in Dalby and I had a few ambitions, and one was never to come back to live here. So, I was a real city dweller, and then I was living in London and came home for holidays and literally met and fell in love with the boy next door, and had to ring my friends and say, can you get all my stuff out of storage and stick it on a ship bound for Australia.
Wow, that must really be love, because I imagine that was a bit of a culture shock coming back to Australia and Dalby.
Had to get rid of all my high heels. That was the biggest thing. I used to wear high heels to work every day, and they don't kind of work in Dalby. But that's good. I'm too old to wear them now anyway.
So she moves back to Dalby, and many years later she's talking to her dad because her family at the time owned a feedlot.
And we were 2 going into 3 generations. We were exporting a bit to Japan. And I said, I think we should market our own beef. And Dad said, plenty of my mates are gone broke doing that. I went, oh, here we go. And he said, when you can use the whole carcass and find value for the whole carcass, you and I can talk. So I went off and I knew nothing other than the fact that red meat is red. So it was a pretty steep learning curve.
That's entrepreneurial just there, isn't it?
I reckon. And just the dad being like, rah, 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 and she thought, oh, well, game on now sort of thing. Is this just the way dads play us, where they're like, I think that's a really good idea. How do I get her to do it? I can't say it's a good idea, and then she won't do it. You can't do that, love, and then there you go. Yeah, that's some good parenting advice.
That is a good parenting tip.
So I did lots of courses. A lot of people said they didn't like dealing with beef because it was expensive and the risk of it not turning out the way they wanted was pretty high. So then I interviewed a lot of people around ready meals, and a lot of people didn't trust them. So a lot of people said, we don't know what's in them. Lots just said they're crap. And my sister was the one. A lot of them described it, but they didn't actually pinpoint it. But it was that if I stick a lasagna or a ready meal in the oven and put it on the table, I don't feel like I've cooked dinner for my family. So even though it's justifiable, because I didn't get home from soccer training till 7:30, and my sister said it's mother guilt. That's why we don't. Because A, it's crap, but B, it's mother guilt.
Wow, I must be a terrible mother because there's no guilt in putting a lasagna on the table, I don't think.
A ready-made one. Have you ever tasted some of those lasagnas?
They are awful. I have to agree.
Yeah, they taste like guilt. So Jilly wanted to create something between a ready meal and making something from scratch. By then, her family sold the feedlot, but she was in too deep. She was invested.
And I always wanted to be the chicken nugget of the beef industry. You know, like everyone tells you that they never give their children chicken nuggets. And I used to stalk people in the shopping centre, and all these women you'd sit at, you know, dinner parties with that, oh no, my children. And I used to say to Calvin, they do. Their trolley was full of nuggets. And Calvin used to go, Jilly, you cannot do that in Australia. You can't do that in Dolby. You cannot stalk people. People were giving their kids chicken nuggets because they served a purpose. You know, they filled a pain point.
Yep, I have served my children many a chicken nugget in the day because at the time that's what they ate. But if there was a nutritious beef nugget, they probably would have eaten it.
Hello, my name is Jane, and I serve my children many a chicken nuggets. And I'm just now understanding why I always seem to run into Jilly at the shops when she's right behind me, checking out the 4-kilo pack of dino nuggets. The other pain point she was focused on were the beef producers. What parts of the carcass were they struggling to sell so that they could save all that waste?
Because I was focusing on what we call the non-primal cuts, one of the reasons that people don't eat them is because they take a lot longer to cook, or otherwise they're as tough as anything. So then it was like, well, how do I make them tender? Well, sous vide was the obvious solution to that.
Helen, have you ever heard of sous vide?
I have actually.
Okay, so what do you think it is? Take a guess.
I think, isn't it where you immerse the meat in water, in a water package, and cook it at a very low temperature for a very long time?
Pretty much. Wow. Look at you go. What a wealth of knowledge. I had no idea what sous vide was before I talked to Jilly.
So sous vide is becoming more trendy. I think MasterChef kind of helped that. But it's not overly practical to do at home. It's a French principle. Food is cooked under low temperatures, but high enough to pasteurise it, but low temperatures for longer time. So basically that gives you the intensity of flavour, it tenderises it. Also, because it's pasteurised, it does have a really safe, long shelf life. So that means we're not having to add chemicals or other additives to it to be able to give it that long shelf life.
That will make, like she said, really, really tender meat. So if you've cooked a piece of meat for 4 hours at a low temperature and then you just sear it, that will be melted in your mouth.
Yeah.
Yum. And then I won't have any guilt because it'll, I'm still cooking it.
Exactly. Yeah, that's right. And could be in your fridge for a while. What a genius idea, hey, to utilise that for families.
Look at the French. Look at the French go.
Look at Jilly and the French. But now she was like, what am I making?
So I was doing a lot of R&D in my home kitchen, and I rang a friend who was a chef. So what do I do with all this offcuts, David? Like, this is a waste. I'm throwing them out. And he said, you need to make a meatball. They'd be perfect meatballs.
Meatballs. High-end meatballs.
There's your chicken nugget in the meat.
Yeah, exactly.
Perfect.
Yeah. So Jilly gets very excited by the meatball idea, okay? And she's off and she's got a retailer on board and everything is going gangbusters. But then she runs into a little problem.
All of our products are sous vide, which means everything has to be vacuum packed. So if you vacuum pack a raw meatball, you end up with just a big patty. It's a disaster. So to put that through the factory, we basically had to design a way that we could protect the meatball shape while we sucked all the air out of the bag. But basically most moulds for manufacturing, particularly food, are a metal thing. So you have to go through metal manufacturers, and apparently there's not enough of those. So I went to so many places and they went, oh yeah, we'll get that done as soon as possible. And I said, oh, good. What's the time frame? And they say 6 months. And I go, no, we're about to hit the shelves in like 6 weeks. And I was at home one night going to my husband, I said, what are we going to do? And my son, who was at the time in grade 6, has come out and he was doing what they call the STEM program. And he said, oh, Mum, don't worry about that. I'll make it. Me and my mates, we'll do it through, STEM. I said, what? He goes, we'll just 3D print it. He said, don't worry about all that metal stuff. And I'm going, oh, if it only was that simple.
My goodness, how clever is that child?
I know.
3D printing.
Yeah, and I love his, oh, Mum, don't worry about that. Like grade 6. 11. I got you, Mum. I got you. But it turns out it is actually that simple. Her son was onto something quite revolutionary.
And so within a week, not only did we have it designed, we had found a place in Toowoomba, west of the range, who this funny little man who printed them. And that would be, nearly 2 years ago now. And they're still going strong. So we were saved by a heap of 12-year-olds. And they were pretty proud. Like, there's plenty of photos circulating with them in their blazers, holding that mould as if they should be getting a Nobel Peace Prize. And they probably deserved it. I felt like giving them one if I could have.
I think the world is safe with the next generation coming through.
I know. It is so cool.
It changed her business.
Yes.
If she hadn't actually been able to do that, she wouldn't have been able to get those things on the shelf in 6 weeks. So.
Yeah. Also, the success of these meatball molds have led to all of these other food innovations.
My manufacturer who I work with, Roger, his passion and most of his work is around aged care. And traditionally people who have difficulty with swallowing, they stick it in a blender at the hospital and out comes your food altogether. And as Roger goes, he said, you know what, you don't want to eat your food all mushed, all the flavours mushed together. He said, you want to have a bit of broccoli and a bit of this and a bit of that. And you want it to look like food. So his work is around delivering food to the aged care facilities. And yes, it's pureed broccoli, but it has to look and taste like broccoli. So the challenge he was having was the same challenge we were having with the meatballs. He had to kind of develop moulds. And the one particular mould he'd had a lot of trouble with was broccoli. He could just never get it right. And I very boldly said, well, look what the kids have done with the meatballs. Cool. So we, again, engaged the kids. And now, Roger, we don't sort of, use child labour anymore. We've sort of ventured out of that. But now all of Roger's moulds are designed and manufactured in Dalby by a local, which has been a project that he's been working on for years and never been able to do.
Oh, that's just incredible.
I know. How cool is that?
Again, that trusting, I don't know everything. And as an adult, it's very hard sometimes to, sit and listen to a child tell you something. But, yeah, good on them.
So they solve the meatball problem and get a little bit too excited.
Don't know how this happened. We ended up turning everything into a meatball. And I was sitting in Sydney at a very major retailer and this category manager who was a bit sassy, and she goes, I just don't understand why you've turned everything into a meatball. And I swear I felt like I'd been hit by a bus because it just dawned on me. I looked, I turned to my colleague and I went, what the? We've turned everything into a meatball.
I just can picture that, like, we've turned everything into a meatball. And I know that exact feeling when you've gotten onto a winner and you take it way too far. So after many twists and turns, like they almost launched during COVID and then pulled back because everyone in the food industry was going broke, they finally are at this stage of launching.
Some amazing opportunities, but some of the hurdles I never saw coming. Never, ever saw coming.
So Jilly and the business, Weeknight Cook, was nominated for some business awards in Dalby. So excited, right? But Jilly felt sick because the business wasn't going well.
I just went, I'm not going. Like, we are in dire straits. We are in a really bad situation right now. And eventually I agreed to go and I was being a bit of an itch about it. And then when I won 3 really major awards, well, Weeknight Cook won, I didn't. And I got a phone call at 9 o'clock on the Monday morning, got the awards on the Saturday, and it was dire. Like, it was the biggest kick we could have got. Everyone's ringing me going, oh, wow, and I'm just going, you have no idea what's actually going on. I'm a fraud.
It must have been a terrible feeling. I can't imagine how sick you would feel.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what happened?
Just about the worst thing you could imagine hearing from a retailer who is selling your product.
We got delisted from a major retailer. Yeah, all of our products were withdrawn from the shelf. It just wasn't working. Look, there'd been lots of challenges. The very senior manager that I had done all my communication pretty much with, he quit the week before we were meant to launch. And with that, they said, okay, you're only going to launch in Queensland. I went into the stores to see us on shelf and I looked around and I rang from the car park in tears my colleagues and I went, none of our people are here. There was not one customer that fitted our target demographic. We have a major problem here.
Oh, wow. Helen, how would you feel to hear this news? You've just won a bunch of awards for your business and your products are being pulled from shelves, and this has been years in the making. Like, what would you do?
That would be devastating because it's personal. Like, she's laid herself on the line for this product and this business. That would be just devastating.
Yeah, exactly.
I said, you know what, this isn't what I set out to do. And I spent a couple of months, and my wall is always covered in butcher's paper and Post-it notes. And I went back to our why, which sounds really corny, but I just went, why did I set out to do this? A lot of why would I bother keep doing this? And that was mostly driven by my kids, you know, like as a parent, we were always saying to our kids, you pick yourself up and you build your army around you. And I had no reason not to pick myself up because I had an amazing army around me.
I love that Jilly, in that moment, in her sort of dark night of the soul sort of moment where she could have quite rightly just gone, bugger this, I'm out, gave it a good red hot go, on to my next thing. She knew she had her children looking at her, and she wanted to actually walk her talk, being something happens, you pick yourself up, you get an army around you, and you charge on. And, yeah, I love that. So she went back to basics.
And now we're about to launch products that we wanted to probably do to start with. So, you know, the good old favourites. So we've got a lamb shank, a beef bourguignon, which I can never say properly, a really good quality pork, meaty pork rib, a chicken saltimbocca, stuff that we all love to eat, but we just don't have time to eat, which was what we set out to do, not just create meatballs.
So Jilly pivoted. She's focusing on what she set out to do in the first place.
Really focusing on Western Queensland, where they don't have access to stuff. And one of my other things, my big why was this was always about showcasing Australian producers and showcasing Australian produce. But we weren't doing any of that, really. We weren't even talking to producers anymore. So at the moment, I'm having some really amazing, and you get off the phone, you actually go, this is why I do what I do. You know, we don't have to be the paddock and the plate. But if we work together, wow, what can we create?
Helen, what do you think you've taken away from Jilly's journey?
One of the really important things that I've just thought about then was that if she had succeeded with the meatballs in the first place, she wouldn't actually be where she really passionately wants to be now. So I think as hard as it would have been for her, and it's easy for me to say, to have been removed from the stores and, you know, been embarrassed about the awards, etc., it's actually put her in the place where she's supposed to be.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you ever watch Bob Ross on TV? He's dead now, but a painter, whenever he makes a mistake on his painting, he's like, oh, that's a happy accident. And in our family, we always say if something goes wrong, we're like, oh, it's a happy accident. Yeah, it can be. You can turn those things around. And this is what Jilly tells her boys.
Sometimes the best experience is the worst experience you can have. Sometimes you learn more and you gain more out of the things that you actually don't even know how you're going to pick yourself up from. Particularly on those days when they get in the car and, you know, they won't burst into tears or want the world to gobble them up. And the second thing is, you know, there's good role models and there's bad role models, but we can actually learn more from the bad role models, because the people you deal with and you go, you're a bit of a dick and I really don't like working with you. And reflecting on what's the silver lining of that isn't always easy, but I think those experiences keep me a bit grounded so I can have those conversations with my kids and their mates and other people. Like, I think sometimes we only tell people the things that are going really well in our business, and that's what, you know, back to that when I got all those awards, like everyone's going, oh, look at Jilly, lucky Jilly, oh, isn't Jilly just soaring? And people would stop me in the street and go, oh my goodness, you guys, well, your business is going so well. I'd have to walk away in tears just going, you have no idea. Like, you have no idea. That's why you go, yeah, actually, I need to keep doing it, because I can't look at my kids honestly in the face and go, you know what, pick yourself up. You know, you can't do that if you're not prepared to do that yourself. You know, even yesterday, something had happened. And they said, I guess it's a bit like when that happened to you and whatever they brought up was like really bad and humiliating. Like, and I went, yes. Yes, at the time I thought, I really didn't need that brought up today. But yes, you're right. Yes, you're right. So that's why I do what I do. But it's not always easy.
Oh, my God. That is a good old kids, hey?
Good old kids, they'll make it real.
Won't they? It reminds me of it's about a year or so ago, I took the kids to this trampoline park and my son, Eli, he's a little acrobat. So he was doing that thing where he jumps off the trampoline and then fully flips and into the pit sort of thing. And he just did it with ease. And Lucy, who's a couple of years older, was trying really hard to do the same thing. And she'd gone a couple of times. She just always chickened out. And I got this girl who was like, you know, like Simone Biles, but at the coast, to teach Lucy how to do it. And I watched along and I was like, Lucy, I'll have a go. And I will fail so badly that then but she'd be like, okay, Mum, go. Anyway, so I jumped and I was like, and I flipped. I flipped over. I actually did it. And I was like, got up from the thing. I went, I did it. And I turned around and my pants were split. And Lucy and Eli and Simone Biles, they were all like, your pants. I was like, I don't even care. I did it. Anyway, Lucy then did it afterwards. And, of course, it's not the story about how Mum flipped. It's the story about when Mum split her pants. Yeah, but that's okay.
That's okay. And on that note...
Yeah.
Next week on Queens of the Land, we're adopting a farmer and wresting back control from the big supermarkets.
In my opinion, small-scale growing is the future of food in Australia.
You're listening to Queens of the Land, a season of the Telling Our Stories to the World podcast, brought to you by the Queensland Writers' Centre and supported by the Queensland Government through Arts Queensland.